from a lesson with Rabash from the study of 10 Sefirot, Volume 1, Part 4, the questions and answers on the meaning of the words, Item 1. Before we enter the study, we'll hear Rav about the main topic of the lesson. Why there is no direct light in Malchut? We speak not of the vessel itself, the desire, but to what extent the desire can resemble the light. Hence, when we speak about Malchut, we say Malchut is a desire. And this desire with the screen, from which it generates reflected light that rises from Malchut up above. And then we consider that the reflected light that becomes a vessel from Yesod and above. That's why Malchut has only reflected light, restriction and reflected light. To the extent it can resemble the direct light, it begins from her and above, where Malchut of direct light becomes the keter of reflected light, and from her, as a keter of reflected light, she bestows to the Creator. Just like in Keter, we don't reveal the Keter, but rather the light from Keter is revealed in the Sefirot below the Keter. Similarly, when Malchut becomes reflected light, bestowal to the Creator, then there is a decision in it, restriction, action, and the disclosure of the action from her above, meaning Yesod, Hod, Netzach, Tiferet, Gvora, Chesed, Bina, Chochma, Keter. That's how it rises from below up. That's why Malchut has only reflected light. Now we'll go to the study of the 10 Sefirot with Rabash, Part 4. The questions and answers on the meaning of the words, Item 1.
Who's at fault? You want to clean it? There's something to clean. Okay, so 1. What is descending reflected light? What does it mean? The descending reflected light. It rises. We always learned that the reflected light rises from below upwards. What's written here? The descending light, from whence does it descend? From above down? Let's see how he answers. During the refinement of the screen, from phase to phase, for example, from phase 4 to phase 3, first it shines through to Malchut, after which she was refined and rose to phase 3. When there's a coupling by striking in phase 3, the illumination of the coupling from phase 3 descends into phase 4, which is empty of light. This illumination is called descending reflected light. What's written here? What does it say? Look. We learned. I'll tell you, this is difficult for me. There is no departure in the Rosh, the head. Did you learn or not? The student said yes. All right. Where was the coupling done?
In the Rosh.
In the Rosh. Okay, so what does it say here? For example, when the coupling was refined from phase 4 to phase 3, the illumination of the coupling from phase 3 descends into phase 4. That phase 4 It has no vessels at some point, no refinement in the Rosh. The coupling takes place at the Rosh. What does it mean? Do you understand me or no? We should interpret it like so. I'll repeat once more. There is a rule. What exists in the Rosh? No, not so. What exists in the Guf, the body, is received in a corresponding discernment in the Rosh, or from a corresponding discernment in the Rosh. If the coupling takes place in phase 4 in the Rosh, for the extension below in the Guf is also through to phase 4. If phase 4 of the Guf is refined, meaning that the Guf cannot receive for phase 4, then a coupling takes place in the Rosh over phase 3. For whose benefit? For the Guf. So that the lower one will be able to receive. And then who receives? Phase 3 in the Guf. Now this begs the question, what happens with phase 4? Previously it had light, but now that a coupling took place on phase 4, she doesn't receive from her corresponding phase, and so from whom does she receive? He comes and tells us a new thing. She receives the descending reflected light. Not the descending direct light. What is this term, the descending reflected light? This we can explain. So we learn that all the nekudot, the dots that emerge, nekudot, the Ari calls them reflected light, which the entire level, all the couplings emerged over 3, 2, and 1, they're all called reflected light. Why? The Ari says, because they illuminated while the lights were returning to their bestower. So I can explain this further, why it is called reflected light. He comes and tells us that it is truly the true reflected light. Why is it called reflected light? He gives this rule. In every degree, we have 3 discernments. We divide every degree into 3 discernments. Rosh, head, Guf, body, and the Guf is divided to above the taboo and below the taboo, above the umbilical, below. What's the difference above or below the taboo? He says that above the taboo, the direct light shines. What does it mean, direct light? He says, I want to receive this light so that I can bestow, because I want to bestow. And this is called parts of the clothing that took place in Malchut of Rosh. What happened when it happened in Rosh? Rejection. What I can't receive in order to bestow, I don't want to receive. I return it. So we find what exists below the taboo, what he doesn't want to receive, what he returns, reflects. If so, this begs the question, why is it called 10 Sefirot? Reflected light, that has a negative connotation. He's returning it, reflecting it. But the Sefirot are something that shines, illuminates. Answer. When he says he doesn't want it, why is that? Due to adhesion. There you have the light of Chasadim with the illumination of Chokhmah. It follows that anything that exists below taboo exists by the power of the reflected light, by the power of the refusal to receive. This is the difference, he explains, between above the taboo and below. Now, let's talk about phase 4 in the goof, in the body. Who does it receive from? Any discernment in the goof receives from its corresponding discernment in the rosh, in the head. It follows that phase 3 in the goof, below the taboo, below the place of the coupling, below the direct light of phase 3, she can illuminate to phase 4 also, but only with the power of the reflected light, no more. Now you can understand the question that's in there. We studied this once.
In the goof.
It's a rule. We must understand the difference in which screen, which restriction, the first foundation. Restriction means, first the foundation. Restriction means because whatever I receive will be with the intention to receive. For that reason, he does not draw any light. There's nothing to speak of, no inner light, nothing. 2, the second discernment. There are times when he can draw some degree. On that degree, let's say the 4th degree, high degree. There I can't. I let him eat, and he stops halfway through and says, that's it. Beyond this, I will lose control. From phase 3, that's a lesser degree, where I will maintain control. So a part I will receive, and another I won't. In the language of Kabbalah, let's say, what is the screen of the 3rd discernment? That screen presides over 3 discernments of coarseness that I can use with the intention to bestow. Anything more than that, anything beyond that, I don't want. So we find that the rest remains as surrounding light. And so we find that in those vessels we need to portray them such that direct light can't reach them. Why? Because I will receive it in order to receive. But that also has its own illumination, and that illumination is called reflected light. Why? Because all his vitality stems from him being able to reflect it. We say that we need a description here, a portrayal. Part of what is received in that degree, there's the light of Chasadim in the illumination of Chokhmah there. What's difficult? I lack the words. A way to portray this, the gift of portrayal. What does it mean? Above taboo, below taboo. I can understand receiving or not receiving. But what is the meaning here? Here I receive, and here I don't want to receive. And here, where I don't want to receive, a light shines upon me. What light shines upon me? From where? From what I am able to receive in order to bestow. And part of that light that I can receive in order to bestow, it's partial. The portrayal of these items is lacking. An illumination called reflected light shines there, which is the light of Chasadim in the illumination of Chokhmah. And that comes from anything that I say that I'm returning, that I don't want to receive. One moment. Because at the same time, when the screen of the goof is refined, there's no... For example, let's say that in phase 4, I can no longer overcome, and that I want to receive it only in order to bestow. The coupling in the Rosh stops then by default. It doesn't bestow upon me below. So what is left? A record from what he had above the taboo, from the direct lights when it illuminated. A record is left below the taboo from the discernment of the reflected lights when it illuminated. Those are two things that are hard to depict in the goof, how to depict how it's divided. I talk about the positive aspect, about what I can receive. So I can mention 3 things. A part of the light I receive. And a part of the light I say I do not want to receive. And then there is a part that I receive, which is called reflected light, just reflected light. A part of the light that I don't want to receive, and yet an illumination comes from there. Our portrayal is, for this discernment is lacking, in these items. If I ask, well, previously the light of Ein Sof, infinity, was shining, and a restriction was made. There is a law that in any vessel in which the light illuminated, a record later remains. Don't forget that it's all holiness.
Why?
There's a record there from his refusal to receive. And we can talk about the part of the restriction, meaning where he does want to receive, but he isn't allowed to receive due to the restriction. It's a different judgment there. And if you ask me, what about those vessels that do want to receive in order to receive? And we learn that there is a restriction. If there is a restriction, nothing is given. So what do they live off of? What sustains them? What sustains us? It is said that divine sparks fell, called a very thin candle, which gives life to the shells, as well as to the people, the human beings, who are amongst the shells. So they won't be annulled, so they will be able to rise again during the revival of the dead, the resurrection. Here I speak of, well, not the simple interpretation, the resurrection. Let's talk about the resurrection from the perspective of our study. This requires effort, a different form. What is a different form? Different portrayal. People who are alive, enjoying life. We say that if they enjoy life in the aspect of reception for oneself, they are called dead. So they cannot receive spiritual vitality, spiritual life. So that's life. They're actually receiving. It's called divine sparks that fell into the vessels, meaning even though the actual light cannot shine there, there was a special correction made so they could rise again during the resurrection. And if that didn't exist, who would ever come and listen? Who could ever hear? That's how people live. They enjoy life. And so why are they called dead? It's because they are separated, in separation. So we say that there is a very thin candle, very small light, that is inside the guf, inside the body, that through this illumination one may live and henceforth be able to be revived through Torah and commandments. So we never talk about death the way the general public do, the death of one's actual body. This is one thing, and that's another. Here, when we say dead, we talk about those who yet move, not those laid in the grave. Here he speaks of living people who are walking around. But we have dust, grave dust in our eyes. That dust is called the will to receive. Seeing as if we want to receive, our eyes cannot see. And we aren't, rather, it's from the restriction that we will rise back to life. This is what's being discussed here. Look here. We say that foundationally, his desire is to benefit his creations, and so no created being can live without a little satisfaction. Right, so if we say that this is the foundation, his desire is to benefit his creations, and so no created being can live without a little satisfaction in his life. No satisfaction from life. That happens sometimes. In the wisdom of Kabbalah, it's called inner light and surrounding light. In common terrestrial terms, we say that one sees that while he has nothing now, in a few days he will have something, maybe. That's the meaning of it shines to him that he will receive later. If a person has nothing at present and sees nothing in the future, usually such a person ends his life. When they have some little vitality, it's possible to think, well, everyone can ultimately reach the resurrection, so there's something to work with. But if the person is in sadness, there's no one to work with. He can do nothing. There has to be some feeling of maybe it's better to switch to a better life, a more spiritual life. But if a person isn't alive, if he's dead, how can I speak with him? And we say that the sparks give vitality to the person so he can live. So he has at least something to enjoy to a lesser or greater degree. But everyone receives some enjoyment. There are such troubles that we are lacking, and we want more. One who has 100 wants 200. He wants, but what he wants. Why does he want? Because he thinks that it is possible for him to attain it. And when one doesn't have the confidence that he can attain something, well, he cannot exist. There's no validity to his existence. This is called the sparks that fell into the vessels to revive them so they can rise and be resurrected. What's the second question? What is surrounding light? All the light rejected from taboo down in each Partzuf, because of the coupling by striking in the screen on the Malchut of the Rosh of the Partzuf, is called surrounding light. And he said there that there are two discernments. The force of rejection and the force of clothing. The force of clothing clothes in the peh through to the taboo. And the force of impurity, not wanting to receive it, is, where is that apparent? Through to taboo. So, once more, what is the question? What is surrounding light? Who doesn't know what surrounding light is? Here, he wants to clarify the rule of the Ari, who says that there is no light in which there is no inner and surrounding. Now, what is the difference, inner and surrounding, in Parzuf Galgalta? What is the difference between the inner and surrounding of Parzuf Galgalta and the inner and surrounding of Parzuf Ab, I ask? Here and there, in any case, he doesn't receive. So he comes and says this. In the Rosh, in Malchut of Rosh, there was a coupling by striking. Malchut performed a calculation. Of this light, a part she can receive, meaning in order to bestow, and as for her own essence, her own phase, which is called Malchut, for that she doesn't want to receive. And so through to Malchut, through to Tabur, she receives, and that is called inner light. And Malchut, her own essence, if she doesn't want to receive, what then? So she did receive, would it fill the whole of reality? Or rather, what she doesn't receive, it fills the whole of reality. That's called the surrounding light. And so, accordingly, in each and every degree, there is above the taboo, it's different. This is called inner light. And below the taboo, it's different. That is surrounding light, a different surrounding light. And that's what he says here. Question 3. What is a light that comes on the way back? What does it mean that it comes on the way back? It was there, and it returns. What does he mean? So he interprets it. What the Ari calls the light that comes on the way back, what he means is the 4 levels, Chokhmah, Binah, Zeir Anpin, and Malchut, that emerge by the coupling, by striking, during the refinement, and that is called light that comes on the way back. Why?
This is because when the lights gradually depart and the couplings are performed only because the upper light does not stop shining, even for a minute. Hence, it is found to be copulating with the screen in the degrees it reaches on the path of its refinement. For this reason, they are not regarded as lights of mercy, which is called direct light, but as judgment, which is called reflected light. What is the question and what is the answer? The question is very simple. The light that comes, meaning that it's coming now. The way back, meaning that it returns to its place. If it returns to its place, what does it mean that it's coming? So he says here they speak about refinement. What is refinement? Since there was the matter of the clash between inner and surrounding, what does it mean, the clash between inner and surrounding? The surrounding tells it the path you're taking by making a screen and restricting, you don't want to receive anymore, you will never reach the goal fully. Who will take the rest of it? It turns out that it weakened its screen. And since there's a rule, without a screen you are not allowed to receive, therefore it doesn't want to receive it. So the light goes back up to its origin in its root. What's the meaning? The light that comes through the way back, since there is another rule. Every screen is included of 4 phases. And this we can understand through an allegory that he gives. It's like a person who is in the 4th room with his friend. He tells him, it says, leave, depart from here, I don't want to see your face. He can't jump from the 4th room outside. So he goes back to the 3rd room. And he had to tell him again, get out of here. Again. However, departure all at once. They tell him again until he leaves. However, there's another rule. The light does not depart. There's no change in the light. I, the Lord, change not. We learn, the light departs, we don't see it. Why don't we see it? There is a restriction. Therefore, as long as there is a little bit of screen, a little something, a rejecting force, you can still see it. This is the meaning of the light that comes through the way back. During that time, the light of the emanator, when it lost the screen, the light that departed, for the time being, it still has something. This is called the light that comes on the way back. And once he has no screen whatsoever, you don't see the light at all. In that case, he asks, what is the record? The record meaning they took a part of the light, they cut it, and it remained. The fact that you see a little bit, this is called a record. But there are no changes in the light. That's the difference in knowing, which is very, very deep. The light has no changes, except you don't see it. What we say, a record, meaning something was left for us to see. A record, meaning to see a small part, and a small part of that you see, that you feel, this is called a record. In that case, what did we discuss here? What is the light that comes on the way back? He comes and says one more thing. This light that comes on the way back is in a state of departing. The Ari calls it judgment. What is judgment? We learned that the judgment means that there was a restriction. There was judgment. You cannot receive in order to receive. It turns out that before the expansion of the light in the form of tamim, tastes, he calls it direct light and mercy. Why? He made a screen He drew the light according to his degree, where he thought he can receive it, and he received it. What happened later? There was a refinement of his screen. On phase 4 in 4, there's already a judgment there. You cannot receive. On phase 3 in 4, there's already a judgment. You cannot receive. So each time the judgment is revealed that you are not allowed to receive until he stops receiving. That is why this light that is revealed while the lights are returning to their emanator, that's why it's called judgment. Why? Because each time it's called judgment, and it's called a reflected light, since this light is revealed during the departure of the light as it returns to the emanator. So we have to start question 4. Who doesn't know what is the light of Malchut? But according to what we learned about Malchut, there was a restriction on it. What light does Malchut have? The question is clear, right? The light of Malchut? Where? Malchut was restricted. So which light Malchut has? Let's read the answer. The force of the screen and the reflected light in it, which exist in the vessel of Malchut, is called the light of Malchut. That's correct. Malchut is called receiving in order to receive. And there was a restriction on receiving in order to receive. As it does not receive any light in this phase. But what did we learn? Malchut was rejected on the screen. With the help of its screen, it can use its coarseness, meaning the extent to which it can bestow. To that extent, it receives. You find the force of the screen and the reflected light in it, which exists in the vessel of Malchut, in the vessel called receiving in order to receive, is called the light of Malchut. The light of Malchut, which she drew by its own phase, that does not exist. There was a restriction. So what kind of light does Malchut have? The force of her screen, giving reflected light. By that, she does use her coarseness on her own phase. Restriction. This is one. The refined light of the record of Malchut is also called light of Malchut. There's no explanation here. We learned that Malchut does not leave a record. What does it say? Why does it say here also? I think to explain it in the following way. First of all, what does it mean that Malchut does not leave a record. So he explains that suddenly all the records are direct light, and it doesn't have direct light. You studied it, right? You learned it. What's the meaning of no direct light? Direct light is called that which belongs to its own phase, called receiving in order to receive. And this is something she does not have. There was a restriction. Next. Additionally, we learn from Malchut, it has the force of the screen and the reflected light. If you recall that we learned in part 4, during the dots, Nekudot, when the last phase was refined, phase 4 of the level of tastes, then he says there's a record of the light of Malchut. What does that mean? The last phase is lost, meaning the force of the screen that we mentioned earlier. This force is lost for it. It cannot make a screen as before. But it had a certain light, not from its own phase. But there was something, and that was from that something was left. Something was left. From which degree? From the Keter. Therefore, when the light of Chokhmah came, the light of Malchut wants to receive it. In that case, there's direct light. That's a different matter. And from its own phase, that it does not have. Next, the force of the screen. The last phase is lost, as we learned last night. And one is asking, what is the meaning that the last phase is lost? But it received something, some kind of light. From which degree? From the degree of Keter. That's why he says the light of Malchut rises above. What does it mean, it rises above? When the degree of Keter, the light of Chokhmah, he wants to bring a very special force to the vessel of Malchut. So it's a vessel of Malchut. The light of Malchut already rose above the degree of Keter. And something was left, something remained from the degree of Keter. And what's left is she doesn't want to receive it. And this is a very fine light, not coarse. What does it mean it wasn't coarse? It's not called direct light. It's not from its own phase. And it's not called the force of the screen and coarseness. Oh, the force of the screen and the reflected light. So here I need to explain it this way. Here, in page 232, item 2, it says the following. A second reason that Malchut is called a mirror without light. When her light rose, the light of Malchut, when it rose above, it did not leave any record in her at all. That you need again to draw it on its own phase. Malchut, her last phase, is lost. However, the record that remained in the vessel of Yesod for its own need on the third phase, and was an extension of the light on phase 3, illuminated from there in the vessel of Malchut too. So I want to know what is the Reshimo, meaning the light that it drew later in phase 3. This is what we call Malchut. But Malchut, to have the light to draw, it doesn't have it. Why? The last phase is lost. So on which light can I activate it? On the screen and the coarseness. Everything he says here, he refers to the record. Next, number 3. When the light of Malchut rose to Yesod, when was that? After phase 4 was refined, and there was a coupling on phase 3 called Yesod, called here the light of Nikudot, of dots. Yesod illuminated in the vessel of Malchut through the posterior of Yesod as reflected light, in the way I said that we learned earlier. Then the descending reflected light in the vessel of Malchut encounters the first ascending light of Malchut herself. And it remained in the Reshimo, in the record. Which record it was? From which light? Of the degree of Keter. One clashed with the other, and Malchut does not want to receive it. Why? It has a record from the degree of Keter, that it came out not on its own direct light, but on the force of the screen and reflected light. It doesn't want to receive. And the sparks came down from the descending reflected light. And it had the record from direct light. That's correct. Malchut doesn't have the power of the screen and the screen and coarseness, as it's called, as it says that the last phase is lost. That's true. Malchut was left with a refined light in the degree of Keter. That's also true. Something of the record was there, but the meaning was that the record that drew this light on the phase 3, it says that it also went to Malchut. Only the last phase is lost. The force of Malchut, called screen and reflected light, this was lost. But the light in this stage remained. So when it went up, who? Malchut. What do you call Malchut? Tabu. Don't forget that. It's incorporated with all the records that went through all the dots until it rose to Peh of Rosh. It's incorporated in all the coarseness that was there of the dots and from the clothing. That's the meaning of rising above and asking from there. There's a creator and there's a created being. And the creator, we call him the one who bestows to us. We cannot attain more than that, only that we bestow, and we need to believe what we receive, that what we receive from him. Now, who receives? The one who has a deficiency, a lack. The one with a deficiency is called a created being. One who does not have a deficiency is not considered a created being. What can you give him? If we say that the created being is called the one with the deficiency, in that case, what is the connection between holiness and a shell? Kedusha, the klipa. Both of them have an evil inclination. You can say that you speak about holiness, you speak of the will to receive, that wants everything, and about its ability to make a screen and reflected light. This is what it receives, and the rest it says, no, I leave it outside. In the vessel of reception, it calls that which it can receive through the screen and the reflected light, it calls it inner light. What it cannot receive, what it does not want to receive, it calls it surrounding light, and it remains on the outside. And now we have a new question. 5. What is coarse and crude light? This is very difficult. He's right. Light. If it's light, how can it be coarse and crude? So he explains it. After the departure of the 10 Sefirot of direct light from the 10 Sefirot of reflected light that clothed them, the reflected light remained below as coarse and crude light. As they are empty of light. Then their coarseness appears and they become distinguished as a vessel.
And now we will discuss in workshop what in Rabash's lesson inspired us most.
The surrounding light, meaning all the light from Tabo and below, in each Partzuf, because of the coupling by striking, it's called surrounding light.
Yes, it's an inspiration, an impression from how a Kabbalist explains the workings of the light and vessel in various states, and how when the light doesn't depart, there's a feeling that it constantly always shines. Even in the refinement, we feel the operation of the light, and it doesn't depart all at once, but gradually, and also leaves behind it the reflected light, as we learned.
I'm impressed by the feelings. How Rabash aims for the heart. Nothing remains in the intellect. Everything is distilled into the common heart. There's a lot of emotion.
Yes.
It's inspiring how Rabash speaks of such lofty matters, and although you don't understand, and certainly don't feel what he's talking about, it's still captivating. You're captivated and you're with him throughout the whole lesson.
Yeah, it's too exalted for me to understand, too high, but I felt how Rabash is drawing the students to be in complete understanding. Is constantly sensitive about their awakening, their understanding. It's too high for me to understand, but it's too high.
התפעלות מאיך תכונת הבורא, תכונת ההשפעה, חייבת להתפשט בכל
We're impressed by how the quality of the Creator, the quality of bestowal, must spread through the whole of reality. It's like the skies expand. Sometimes there's a stop, a regression, but it must expand and fill the whole reality.
Impressed by the feeling of how much Rabash cares for us and aims what he opens for us, and the time together we study with Rabash, a time of inner reflection that obligates us to add the prayer.
Yes. What the purpose of the study is and how not to forget about it, lose it as we study. Rabash talks about the restriction. So where is the restriction in R10 right now? He talks about reflected light. How do we now build reflected light? And so with each word he says, how do we respond? How do we react? Where is the reforming light that will correct the connections between us, turn them into those sublime forms?
And how important it is to be in a lesson with Rabash together, because together we receive what he wants to give us. Very important.
Let's continue like that, to be impressed.
Let's we'll conclude with the quote with which we started the lesson. It's from the document on faith above reason, excerpt 31. Matter of prayer should be with heaviness of the head, meaning when a person feels that he does not have faith above reason, meaning that the reason does not mandate him to work in order to bestow. Yet the person understands the primary goal should be to be rewarded with adhesion with the Creator. And since the reason objects to this, he must go against reason, and this is very hard work. Since he is asking the Creator to give him something to which all of his organs object, it follows that each and every prayer he makes to the Creator has its special work. This is why a prayer is called work in the heart, meaning that he wants to go against the intellect and the mind, which tell him to the complete opposite. This is why it is not called the work of the brain, since the work of the brain means that a person exerts to understand something with his mind and reason. But here, he does not want to understand with his reason that we should serve the Creator in a state of knowing. Rather, he wants to serve the Creator specifically with faith above reason. That is why his prayer is called work in the heart. Again, a prayer should be with heaviness of the head, meaning when a person feels that he does not have faith above reason, meaning that the reason does not mandate him to work in order to bestow, yet the person understands that the primary goal should be to be rewarded with adhesion with the Creator. And since the reason objects to this, he must go against reason, and this is very hard work. Since he is asking the Creator to give him something to which all of his organs object, it follows that each and every prayer he makes to the Creator has its special work.
נקראת תפילה עבודה שבלב.
This is why a prayer is called work in the heart, meaning that he wants to go against the intellect and the mind, which tell him the complete opposite.
משום אין זה נקרא
This is why it is not called the work of the brain, since the work of the brain means that a person exerts to understand something with his mind and reason. But here, he does not want to understand with his reason that we should serve the Creator in a state of knowing.
אלא הוא רוצה דווקא לעבוד את השם.
Rather, he wants to serve the Creator specifically with faith above reason. And this is why a prayer is called work in the heart.
עכשיו אנחנו